Welcome, my name is Jamin Gurker. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and I'm an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska, which means today we're going to be talking about what is going on in the real estate market in Anchorage. Now, Anchorage is a pretty large market here in Alaska. It is not the largest real estate market. We'll talk about which market that is in a future video, but today we're going to be looking at Anchorage specifically, and we want to know what's going on in the single-family residential, the condo, and the multifamily market, and we'll kind of give a bit of a summary at the end for if you're looking at this market as a buyer, seller, or an investor. Before we get started with that, though, as always, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, do all that great stuff, and let's jump into it. Now, the first thing we want to look at for the single-family properties is what's going on in the number of active inventory. Now, for the active inventory, we see that this time last year, there was 174 properties available on the market, and this year, 188. So that's a step in the right direction, but normally around this time of year, prior to COVID, we'd see anywhere from about 560 to about 620 properties available on the market. So you can see there is definitely a long ways to go for wanting to get back to where the inventory was prior to COVID. The next thing we want to look at is how many properties have actually sold during the month of February, where we have the most complete data. Well, what we see is that this time last year for the month of February, it was 107, and this year it's 92. Now, looking historically, I would actually expect to see closer to about 130, maybe 150 or so. So 92 is still less than what we normally see. Not a big surprise, though, given that the inventory is about a third of what it normally is for this time of year. So not a huge surprise there. All right, now the next thing we're going to look at is what's going on as far as the average sold price. So I'm pretty sure there's something off with the numbers here, because the average sold price year to date went from about $510,000 this time last year to $505,000 this year. Now, before everyone starts getting excited and starts saying, yeah, this is it, the market's finally going to crash, we're going to get our own blah, blah, let's calm down a little bit. I'm pretty sure the software actually made some kind of a mistake here, because the 2 months where we have the most complete data, January and February, we see that the month of January went from average sold price in 2024 from about $465,000, went to about $519,000 for this past January. And then for this past February in 2024, the average sold price went from about $460,000 for the month of February to about $487,000 this year. So for both of them so far, we've seen about a $20,000 increase for the average sold price. I'm really not sure where we're getting an actual decrease there. I'm not seeing it in the numbers. Either way, though, I can say anecdotally on the ground, I am working with buyers. I'm really not seeing this decrease in the average sold price for homes in Anchorage. I suspect that a lot of these statistical issues really start working themselves out once we get further along in the year, but that's what we're seeing right at the moment. I'm not really seeing a decrease. I'd actually am seeing, looking at those 2 months, about a $20,000 increase for the average sold price. All right, now let's take a look and see what's going on in the condos. So in the condos, we see that this time last year there were 72 available, and this year it's 101. So that is a welcome step in the right direction, but normally we'd see anywhere from about right around 270 to about 320, 330 condos available on the market. So being just over 100 properties available on the market. Like I said, it's still a step in the right direction. It's still a long way off from where we were prior to COVID. Next, what we see is the average number of condos actually selling went from 75 this year to 47 condos sold last year to 47 condos sold this year, which not a big shift year over year. Normally, condos is kind of a crapshoot. Sometimes it really kind of just fluctuates up and down. We see historically, though, this kind of in line with the lower end of what we'd normally see. We see that this time of year, we'd see anywhere from about 47, 46 properties actually selling all the way up to 76. So kind of on the low end of it. But yeah, definitely we can tell there's a shortage of inventory. Now, looking at the average sold price year to date for condos, we see the average sold price went from about $278,000 this time last year to about $291,000 this year, which means we're seeing about a 4.6% increase for the average sold price for condos in Anchorage year to date. Now, that's about what I would expect to see once a lot of people are kind of seeing a shortage of inventory in the single family market, or they're kind of feeling the pinch due to inflation and they're looking for something that's a little bit more affordable. Condos suddenly become more available, and this is also the time, inexplicably, when a lot of condo owners have decided to take their property off of the market. And I say inexplicably because for decades there's been a glut of inventory for condos in Anchorage, and a lot of these people have just been trying to get out, but there's been so many of them that it was very difficult to get rid of them. Now we have an environment where they can actually get rid of them, and suddenly they're holding on to it. So that kind of just is what it is. There's some irony there. I do understand their logic talking to some of them, but from the outside looking in, it does kind of make you tilt your head one way at first when you hear about it. But let's go and take a break real quick. For those of you who've been watching for a bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast. I took a little bit of a hiatus the past couple weeks, just to some personal stuff going on in my life, but I'm going to be producing those episodes for you again in the near future. We've got hundreds of episodes, well over 100 episodes at this point, of interviewing people who have recently moved to Alaska or lived here for a long time, and really kind of letting them unpack and discuss what it's like living up here in Alaska. And the value of that is you get to hear from someone other than me talk about what it's like living up here. So do make sure you go check that out. Now let's go and finish up today's market update, looking at what's going on in the multifamily section of the real estate market. Now, looking at the multifamily market, we see that this time last year there were 61 multifamily properties available on the market. This year there are 72. So that's a slight uptick from what we normally see. Historically, prior to COVID, we see that we'd expect anywhere from about 100, 140 some up to nearly 170,000. So the fact that we're still sitting at about 72 really shows that there's still kind of a shortage of inventory that's available out there. Looking at the number of multifamily properties that have actually sold, it went from 13 last year to 13 this year. So not a whole lot of movement one way or the other. Now, what we do see is when we look back prior to COVID, though, normally we would expect to see anywhere from about 16 up to about 30 properties being bought and sold around the month of February. So the fact that we're at 13, we're still kind of on the low end of what we would expect historically, but also take into account just the drastic cut in inventory that's available. So that really does speak to demand for multifamily properties that are in Anchorage. Last but not least, we see that the average sold price for multifamily properties went from about $587,000 to about $611,000, which means we've seen an increase of about 4.1% for the average sold price for multifamily properties year to date. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I've said this a million times, multifamily includes everything from the little duplex all the way up to the big commercial property with 50 plus units in it. So you can see that there's a lot of range in what this actually includes. But I would say that this does kind of keep in line with what I've seen anecdotally lately, just kind of watching the market. About 4% increase for the average sold price for multifamily. That does seem about right. There's still demand out there. The big thing for investors is just making sure the numbers actually do make sense, and making sure you leave yourself enough margin, because if you put yourself in too deep on a deal, something goes wrong and you don't have the capital to take care of the repairs or something, or whatever happened that needs to be taken care of, then at that point, that's not a good deal at that point. And your tenants are looking at you trying to figure out what you're going to do to fix it. So don't put yourself in that spot. Make sure your deals actually work out. Now, let's go and give you a summary real quick. If I'm a buyer looking at this market, I have a little bit more optimism than I might have in the past couple of years. And the reason for that is we are starting to see more homes coming onto the market. There's definitely a sense of more optimism at this point. And that means that some sellers are going to be willing to sell that they just were not willing to sell in the past couple of years, because when there's a lot of uncertainty, people have a tendency to just hunker down and hold on to what they have. They're not really looking to sell and offload what they currently have. There's definitely kind of a greater sense of optimism at the moment I've seen in the real estate market up here, and so we are going to see probably some upticks in sales happening just as more properties are coming onto the market. I'm not expecting to return anytime soon to the inventory we had prior to COVID, and I'm also not anticipating a collapse in the real estate market anytime soon. I've been saying for about 5 years at this point, or at least 6 years, I'm not really seeing this big collapse that a lot of people were prophesying about, and turned out to actually be nothing. So yeah, not really seeing that right at the moment. If I'm a seller though, I am also not going into this market with the anticipation that it's going to be the 2021 or the 2020 market. This is not the same market that we had before, and we can definitely expect that we're going to be running into a lot of, we're going to have more competition from other sellers, and there's not going to be as many buyers. It's going to be a healthy seller's market, but also we have to make sure we do our work and making sure the house is priced to where it needs to be, make sure that it's staged, and make sure you put your best foot forward. You know, the days of just doing minimum effort and then putting it on the MLS and then, just getting 10 or plus offers within the first day, those days are not right now, okay? So we got to make sure we put in our work. But this has been my market update talking about what's going on in Anchorage. I really hope it's been useful. If you have any other questions, like I said before, I'm actually a real estate broker. I actually make my money off of, buying and selling real estate with people, not with making YouTube videos. So if you need help, reach out to me. That's how you can support me and help me on this channel. But thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.